This is the story of the face-off between two of the most influential men in Europe. The Pope versus the populist. In one corner, Matteo Salvini, Italy's deputy prime minister, closed Italian ports to refugee rescue boats, made it easier to deport migrants. The Pope, on the other hand, has washed the feet of refugees, supports humanitarian corridors for them to come to Italy. It's the hostile environment versus love-thy-neighbour. Our story starts a few kilometres from the Vatican at the giant Spin Lab squat in the centre of Rome. This building is home to 500 people, many of them refugees and migrants. In May, their electricity was cut off because bills hadn't been paid, leaving the families there in darkness. When the Vatican heard about children in Rome living without light and hot water, they sent in this man, the so-called Robin Hood Cardinal, Konrad Krajewski, the Pope's official almsgiver. So on the evening, Cardinal Konrad, with the blessing of Pope Francis, leaves the Vatican, rolls up his sleeves and climbs down this manhole to reconnect the electricity to the building. It was a dissident act. It was a political act. It might as well have been Pope Francis himself climbing down this ladder into a hole in the ground. In many ways, the squat is the stuff of Matteo Salvini's nightmares. Artists, communists, migrants living together, but not paying the bills. Enrico Maluzzi's nighttime clandestine orchestra was rehearsing that night when the Cardinal came down. I have to say, for me as an Irish person, the idea of a cardinal going down a hole in the ground.
Yes, he wasn't dressed like
full
purple. No, he's a real Christian move. Maybe is the one of the first real Christian move we see.
The gesture is so remarkable that the squat named the trapdoor the manhole of God. Matteo Salvini, Italy's deputy prime minister and head of the nationalist Lega party, wasn't happy. He called the act illegal and slapped down the cardinal on Twitter. If the cardinal could help Italians, he said, who respect the law as well, I'd be grateful. It's the closest Salvini and Pope Francis have come to a public spat over immigration. This is Patience and her friend Comfort from Nigeria, who live in the squat. I'm going with them to a political festival. One of the speakers, another member of the Pope's inner circle who we want to talk to. But first, Patience, who knows all about the hostile environment.
There is a particular place you are that can kill your dreams, you know. Actually, it's not the kind of life every good parents want for our kids.
But, with everyone struggling, acknowledges that the issue of immigration is politically fraught.
Salvini is his own way of ruling. We all have our own politics, we all have our own rules and regulations. The way everybody are marching into Europe, and you can see it's not easy to get work.
So do you think, to a certain extent, Salvini has a point?
He might have.
Salvini has been accused of weaponising Catholicism in recent elections. He's waved rosary beads around, kissed the crucifix. As light fades back at the festival, we meet the influential bishop who has the Pope's ear and ask him the big question. If Jesus was Italian, would he vote for Salvini?
No, non lo so, non credo. Da quello che si vede penso di no.
Neither Salvini or the Pope can afford all-out confrontation here, lest they alienate the faithful. But at Sunday Mass in Rome, evidence that the Church's gloves are coming off. A letter read out from a group of influential Italian bishops, an appeal to regularise immigration and reject racism. It might as well be addressed to Salvini himself. And over post-Mass gelato, a glimpse of the tensions within the congregation.
Anche noi, non noi, i nostri a sua volta hanno emigrato, no? Adesso questo afflusso così non controllato è quello che è brutto, non controllato.
Quello che dice Papa Francesco, che è alla base diciamo, del cristianesimo, è giusto, no? Nel senso dare la possibilità a tutti ad accogliere ed essere gentile con gli ospiti o quello che è. Però il problema di fondo è che l'Italia ormai è diventato un paese saturo.
Pope Francis is taking the long view here, according to this influential priest, a sense that the rise of nationalist populism is part of a broader spiritual malaise that the Church can help cure.
America first, Hungary first, Italy first, myself first. People are alone. And before the danger of the world, I go back in myself, I close the doors, I try to make fences around my own life, but these are very fragile.
Given Pope Francis' stance on immigration, priests who support Salvini tend to keep quite quiet about it. We have managed to find one, though, here in this village we're coming up to not far from Naples. In San Martino Sanita, Father Salvatore Pica echoes Salvini's argument on immigration, says it's immoral to welcome migrants in if Italy can't accommodate them properly.
E non ti posso dire ti ospito a casa mia e poi ti metto nella cuccia del cane, nella casetta del cane.
Is there any tension within your parishioners here between Salvini's message and the message of Christ?
No, assolutamente. Bisogna riconoscere la realtà perché i sogni sono una cosa bella, gli ideali sono una cosa straordinaria, però poi bisogna confrontarsi con la realtà.
In the town square, a feeling that the parish priest is playing down tensions between Pope, populist and parishioners. As far as you're concerned, can you be a true Catholic and a supporter of Salvini?
No. If I'm a real Christian, I can't support Salvini.
Are you saying that your local parish priest, as far as you're concerned, is not a true Catholic?
No, he is not. I don't think so.
Like, that's a very strong thing to say.
A true Catholic can't say what he says in the political field.
And that is the crux of the matter. How much longer can the Church and State dance around their differences on immigration? How close are we to a pontifical knockout punch?
Parker O'Brien there. Well, joining me now from Dartmouth College in New Hampshire is Yasha Munk, an academic and author who writes a lot on nationalist populism. Thanks for coming on the programme, Yasha. So, the Catholic Church is one of the few genuinely global organisations still out there. You've got the rise of nationalist populism across Europe. In this particular battle in Italy, who's winning?
Well, perhaps both are losing, I'm not sure. I mean, what's really interesting here is the deep tension between two different kinds of ideas of thinking about religion, and particularly Catholicism in the Italian context. Catholicism is, of course, a religion. It is a set of beliefs, and they invade on people to take care of the weak, to be open to the stranger. On the other hand, in Europe, it has also become a deep marker of identity. So for many people in Italy, being Catholic is not just about believing in Jesus Christ, it is about not being Muslim, about being Italian rather than, say, coming from Africa or Asia. And we're seeing these two different conceptions in battle with each other here.
But you've got the Pope washing the feet of migrants. You've got Matteo Salvini, who's built a political career, very stridently on stopping migration, stopping refugees from coming to Italy. That clearly creates a deep tension inside Italy itself, and possibly for Mr. Salvini as he kisses the crucifix.
Well, and one of the sort of core elements of populism is the claim that I and I alone speak for the people. So what's interesting here is that Matteo Salvini seems to have a confidence to say, in the end, if Italians have to choose between their interior minister, the most popular politician in the country, and the Pope, they're going to choose the interior minister. They're going to choose Salvini. Well, according to opinion polls, so far he seems to be winning that bet, which is quite remarkable for a country that is as deeply religious as Italy still remains today.
Is the Pope a left-wing populist?
No, it's not clear to me that the Pope is either left-wing or a populist. It's quite clear that on the specific issue of migration, he has a set of views which probably makes him more sympathetic to the European left today than the European right. But on many other issues, including homosexuality and all kinds of other issues, I think he's very far from being a left-winger. And he's not a populist because populists claim that they speak for the people and that they're the only legitimate political force. I think the Pope recognizes that his political role is very limited.
So what happens in countries across Europe to right-wing nationalist populism when the migrants and the refugees stop coming?
Well, I actually wonder whether this is as much about the kind of multi-ethnic society we are building in all European countries as it is about the specific issue of refugees. Look, I grew up in Germany. A couple of years before the refugee crisis really took control of a political discussion there, the best-selling book of Germany's post-war history was about the problem of integrating Turkish migrants who had been in the country for many decades in many cases. And this book, which was deeply critical of the descendants of Turkish migrants, was a huge bestseller there. So I think even if the question of refugees subsides into the background, some of those deeper questions about how to build a multi-ethnic society and the rebellion against it on parts of the populist right is going to stay with us for the long haul.
And as we see in Hungary, you don't actually need migrants or refugees for them to become a big issue that can win you an election.
Yeah, so I was in Hungary and Poland and a few other countries for research purposes in the spring. And one thing that struck me is the extent to which people there said, look, we don't have many immigrants here, but we've traveled to Western Europe, we've been to those countries, and we don't like what we see over there. So there's a sense of fear about depopulation in those countries and the kind of demographic transition that might happen if they open the doors to immigrants, which drives a very robust form of far-right populists, even in the absence of high numbers of immigrants.
Got to leave it there. Yasha Monk, thank you very much.